You're still listening to Breakfast Connect on Africa Business Radio. I am Bimbola Awoyele. When I say public relations, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? We usually think damage control, press briefings, image laundering, but there's more to it. So today we'll be talking to someone who has done PR in Nigeria and the United States. She also runs her own PR firm, Moremi Elekwachi of Euphoric PR. Welcome to Breakfast Connect.
Thank you very much. So how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for taking the time out once again. Let's jump right into it. You have a master's in journalism. I would expect you to be in front of a camera or behind a microphone or on the beat chasing the latest news story. Why aren't you doing any of these typical or traditional journalistic things?
Okay, so I actually have my first degree is in journalism, but my master's is actually in marketing communications. So I think that both are actually quite similar because at the end of the day, it's still in the genre of storytelling. You know, I studied journalism because of my love for telling the stories of interesting people and causes. And with PR and the marketing communications, it's actually kind of the same thing because you're, strategically telling the stories of interesting individuals, businesses, and brands as well. So I think that, it's pretty much, still storytelling.
Your dad was a journalist, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He was a journalist, yes.
How much of an influence did him being a journalist make you choose to study journalism as a first degree?
Yeah, he had a very, very large influence on me, maybe in ways that he never really even was aware of. Because I have other siblings that are all like in different disciplines. But for some reason, I stuck with the journalism and storytelling because when I was growing up, I witnessed firsthand the kind of impact that his work in journalism had on the society. He interviewed great people like MKO Abiola. He interviewed, controversial figures like IBB. He interviewed even, presidents of other African countries. He was very active in the political journalism space. And I would see like the impact and influence that his stories would have in shaping the history of the society, and that really, really spoke to me, just the power of that written word and crafting stories in a way that audiences will look at and understand and get influenced by, and get influenced in positive ways because knowledge is power. So by reading those stories and having that information, society, could change. I saw that growing up with all the work that my father did, and I just fell in love with the power of storytelling, and that's why I decided to delve into media and communications and journalism.
Tell us about Euphoric PR. What made you decide to start a PR agency, having worked as a manager at one of Nigeria's most successful online news and entertainment websites?
Yes, so I've always been fascinated in the way perception can influence the public, again through storytelling. While I worked at Bella Naija as assistant editor and business development manager for about 2 years, and I was quite fascinated with the way stories could influence people and what kind of stories influence people. It was just very fascinating. For instance, I discovered that there would be some stories that were written and posted that would get tons and tons and tons of comments, and then there are other stories that would be written and published that you may not even get one comment, but in the back end, in the website, you could see like the analytics are shooting up. So just because such a story does not have comments does not mean that it's not impactful or effective. So I found that really, really interesting because I've always been a fan of pop culture and the way pop culture influences the society. So, just taking that knowledge from my experience, I thought, well, okay, these are the stories that are being crafted, but wouldn't it be interesting to kind of be the architect of public opinion, to strategically craft stories to create certain kinds of perception about individual causes or businesses, So that's really where that interest began to blossom and bloom. I've always been interested in public relations, even when I was a student in the United States, even when I worked. But then coming to Nigeria, it's a whole different ball game as far as the way PR works. Because, from my years of experience, I learned that not every communication strategy will work for every audience. So you have to critically look at your audience and shape your strategy to fit that particular audience, So I was quite fascinated by the Nigerian market. And, that's what made me actually, go into PR here because things are much different than they are, in the U.S.
Before your managerial role at Bella Niger, you worked at a PR firm in Ikeja. And before that, you had worked for a PR firm in the United States. What's the difference, if any, between PR in Nigeria and in the US?
Okay. So I would say that I feel like it's a bit easier here in Nigeria because, we like me as a PR professional, I relate with journalists on a more informal level. It's like we're friends. I could call my favorite journalist at The Guardian or my favorite bloggers and we'll be gisting like we're friends. We've built such strong relationships to the extent that I know what happens in some of their families. I know what's happening in their personal lives. A lot of them knew when I got married. It's a very close and informal relationship model here, when it comes to media relations, at least for me. Maybe other publicists might have a different experience. Well, whereas over there, media relations is not as informal, Yes, you speak with your favorite journalist, you try to get them, on board a project to, publicize and all that. I mean, it's less informal. It's still kind of a bit formal, that kind of close, oh, this is my sister type relationship, So that's a major difference. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's good or bad, Like I said, it's just understanding the different cultures and the different audiences and adapting as necessary where you are. As they say, when you're in Rome, do like the Romans, So I wouldn't say that this difference is good or bad. Another difference that I would, like to point out is the whole concept of merit-based coverage. So I find that, over in the U.S., you're more likely to get more merit-based coverage. And what I mean by that is, if you're maybe an upcoming, whether you're an upcoming designer or tech startup or whatever it is, if your product or service is good and it's unique, a lot of journalists and media, they're willing to feature your story or write something about you or come on board your project for free if they actually believe in what you're doing, Here in Nigeria, it's the same, but I would say that in a lot of cases, you actually have to pay, no matter how good or innovative what you're doing is. If it's not celebrity-based, it's not popular culture-based, then you probably, some will feature for free, but the whole merit-based system doesn't work as strongly as it does, over in the States. And that is, I think, a major drawback, because then, it kind of discourages, people who are on the come up from being discovered by other people, because, okay, what if they can't afford X amount of coverage and all that? So that means a lot of people never get to hear their story, So I would say that that is one other area where, there is a disparity between how the PR system works here and in the U.S. as well. So,
what separates Euphoric from other PR practitioners or agencies?
Okay. So in terms of operations, we don't do, PR is one of our core competencies. It's a core competency of ours, but we still do other things, So we see ourselves as a full-service marketing communications company, although PR is the core competency. So we do, branding, we do, website design, we do, image consulting, we do stakeholder management. So we do a lot of things within the communication space, even down to even event planning, because that's part of public relations as far as relating to the public. So we're more of a 360 communications agency. So that is one thing that makes us differ from others. Another thing is our approach to customer service. We are very hands-on in the process. We actually call ourselves our clients' BFF. We actually have WhatsApp groups for our clients for each project. We're in the groups, we're talking, we're laughing. Yes, we're discussing business and strategy and publicity, but we have a very informal relationship with our clients, such that they feel very comfortable and they feel at ease, even talking about non-business things. So we call ourselves our clients' BFF. And, for many other agencies, that may not be the case, where most of the time it's formal, or, only contact me between 9 to 5, or if it's not business, you don't want to hear it, or, because we understand that for a lot of SMEs and business owners, running a business in Nigeria, is hard enough already, So the kind of relationship you have with your PR agency should be one that flows seamlessly into your day-to-day life. It shouldn't be like this other chore that you have to do. It should be seamless. It should be organic and fun. We believe it should be fun. So that is one of the things that that sets us apart. And as the CEO of the company, I'm pretty hands-on as well. It's not one of those instances where, before a major decision can be made about a campaign, you have to wait for Oga or Madam's call or sign off, and there's all these bottlenecks and big days, and no. We all work together as a family and as a team with our clients to try and get the job done in the most efficient yet, friendly way, as possible. So I think those are some things that set us apart.
It sounds like a fun place to work at.
Yeah. Yeah, we have game nights sometimes. I mean, this was pre-COVID. We have pizza day where we have pizza in the office. We even have a Netflix and chill day, every second Friday of the month. So we try to finish our work early, maybe as early as 2 p.m. or 3, and then we watch movies for the rest of the day, because we believe that work-life balance is so important. You know what I mean? So we try to treat our employees and our team like family, like friends, So, yeah.
Let's get back to journalism and media for a bit. What is your general assessment of the industry in terms of substance, quality, remuneration, infrastructure, regulation, the whole 9 yards?
So what I think about the media industry in Nigeria is that, just like every other thing in life, there's always room for improvement. There's this saying that goes that, the day you stop learning is the day you die. Like, we're all learning, we're all constantly evolving, and everybody, has some room for improvement and room for growth, Although I would say that the media industry is thriving in Nigeria, over the years it's been thriving, but I would say that one of the observations that I have is that I feel like media practitioners should actually be paid better in general. Remember what I told you about merit-based coverage and how in Nigeria it's a bit difficult, and over the years I found out that it's because a lot of times, like, employees in media industries are not even paid like on time, talk less of how much they're paid. It's not strange for a journalist to tell me, Moremi, I would like to run this thing for you for free, but my dear, we've not been paid in 3 months. Our editor hasn't been paid in 4 months. They haven't paid us. Do you understand? So kind of like, because of the way in some instances some employees at some organizations are treated, they don't even get paid on time. They get old salaries and everything. So inevitably, it kind of affects the quality of their work, because these are employees, they have families, they have bills to pay, and they're depending on their job to provide at least the bulk of those resources they need, But in situations where they don't have those resources or they're not made available on time, it affects journalistic integrity. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to justify that. I'm just trying to say, well, these are the issues that we're facing. Let's pay our journalists better. Let's pay our media practitioners on time. Let us treat them well, because without the media industry, the flow of information to the public would not be delivered as efficiently. And journalists work hard day and night to make sure they put their all into their job. How do you expect a journalist to write objectively when they haven't even been paid for months? They're probably going to write, biased stories and get paid by people who own those stories. You know what I mean? So in order for us to see a change, let us start treating our journalists and media practitioners better. And I think that is the first step. I believe that when that is done, we will see massive changes and massive improvements in the industry.
How would you describe the changes or evolution in journalism between the time your dad was in the business and what is being practiced now?
Oh, there's been massive changes. Massive changes. I remember back then, even though I was pretty young, I remember that journalists were held in very high esteem. They were seen as the gatekeepers of information. They were very, very respected, and they were very, very feared at the same time. You know what I mean? Because of that power of storytelling and that ability to influence public perception with stories. That was like gold back then. Journalists were seen as very respected and respectable people. And I believe that they were paid better. They were paid better, and I believe that also payment was regular. I mean, from the little I remember as a child, I don't think I ever heard my dad complain that, someone hadn't paid or whatever. No. I don't believe so. Even in his time, the media organizations would actually pay him to travel to other African countries to interview people and write stories. His media organization would sponsor that trip, take care of him while he's away, whereas now, sometimes I talk to my journalist friends and, some of the things they complain about, I just find it so hard to believe, because I'm like, what you're doing is so valuable for, and I believe that you should be paid better and respected better for this amazing work that you're doing. So there's definitely a huge difference.
Now, apart from the entertainment and fashion industry, what other industries in Nigeria do you think use public relations as they should? And which ones or one do you think needs people in your line of work but are not taking advantage of the opportunities in PR?
Okay. So I would say, apart from the entertainment industry, I believe that a lot of industries need it. And there are some industries I see that are taking PR more seriously and they're seeing the effect. For instance, tech startups. Tech startups in Nigeria, I'm really, really impressed by the way a lot of them have been, leveling up their PR, because PR is so important, because apart from influencing the public perception of your immediate place of residence or establishment, it actually influences international public perception. You hear of tech startups that are looking for seed funding. They're looking for investment from international investors, and you hear stories about how, based on the amount of media coverage and the quality of media coverage and media mentions that some of them get, it actually lets investors see that the work that they're doing is valuable, and they're more inclined to actually sponsor such a project. You know what I mean? I've seen so many instances like that. Even at Euphoric PR, we had a certain client who, she was the CEO of a very reputable company, and she was always being invited to the U.S. to speak at certain conferences, but, securing the visa had always been an issue. She would get rejected, most of the time that she would go apply. And if she went twice, she got rejected. Then, she started PR with us, as far as revamping her personal image and the image of her business. And guess what? The first time she went to the American Embassy, when she told them her name and all that, the interviewer was looking on the computer to find out who she was. And she was like, "Oh, you were featured in so publication. Oh, you spoke at this event. Oh, this was the event you did and you engaged with stakeholders. Okay. Looks like the work that you're doing is very valuable. We're granting you the visa." So PR actually opens doors because it actually forms that perception, I see NGOs, in Nigeria actually using PR to a larger extent, which is great. Fashion. There are a lot of people who realize the importance of PR, even politics, government, you know what I mean? But some sectors that I think actually need PR more, I would like to see more PR in the education sector, because I feel like the information that comes out of that sector is not filtered or structured in any way. You know what I mean? There's this perception that public institutions in Nigeria are not the best quality. It's only negative news you hear, in the present day most of the time. There's nobody really controlling that information. So I feel like in the education industry in Nigeria, the use of PR needs to be elevated, even in the medical field. There's so many medical doctors in Nigeria, many hospitals in Nigeria who are doing great things every single day, and they're experiencing numerous medical breakthroughs every single day. But the only narrative most of the time that you hear about the healthcare system in Nigeria is, oh, it's useless. Oh, if you want good treatment, travel abroad. But that's not the case in every situation. So how about these practitioners, through the use of PR, they're able to control the public perception about them. They're able to put out those good success stories that will help, change people's perception about the kind of work that they do. You know what I mean? So I think those are some areas that could do better as far as PR. But I also think that there needs to be a lot of education about what PR is, because in this part of the world, a lot of people still don't really know what it is. And personally, at Euphoric PR and on my own, before we take on any client, we just try to educate them about what PR is. We've had so many instances where prospective clients will come to us and say, oh my God, I need PR in my business. A lot of times, maybe they don't even need PR. What they think is PR is not what it is. For instance, we once spoke to a restaurant owner, and she was saying, people were not coming to her store, but she believed she needed PR. So what we did is we researched the restaurant extensively, and we came to the realization that the quality of service at that restaurant was very poor. The food was not good. Management was terrible. So that is what she needed to actually change the management of her restaurant. She did not need PR. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So there needs to be more education about what PR is and how effective it is for businesses and individuals, I think.
Thanks for taking out the time to talk to us, and we hope we can have you on at a later date.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
We've been talking to Moremi Elekwachi, founder and CEO of Euphoric PR Nigeria. Breakfast Connect continues in a bit. Stay with us.